The Ramsey County Board of Commissioners meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Fretham,
Here.
Mattis Castillo,
Here.
McDonough,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Here.
Carter.
Here. Thank you very much. Commissioner Ortega, would you please say the Pledge of Allegiance for us while we all mute?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Before we move to the approval of our agenda, let us all take a moment of silent meditation in recognition of the crises that have been among us, and also particularly this week as we acknowledge the year having passed since the murder of George Floyd. Thank you for that centering moment. The agenda of our May 25th meeting is before you. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner McDonough, Commissioner McGuire for the motion and second. Are there any comments on the agenda? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Mattis Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye, thank you. The agenda is passed, and we also have then the minutes from our May 18th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners Ortega, Commissioner McGuire. Are there any comments on our minutes? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Mattis Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye, thank you very much. The minutes have passed. We have the honor this morning of recognizing Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month with a proclamation. I'll call on Commissioner Ortega to read the proclamation and share any guests who will be receiving it here with us. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is indeed an honor and a privilege on behalf of the board to read the first proclamation by Ramsey County recognizing the Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. I will read the proclamation. Whereas the month of May is Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, dedicated to the recognition and celebration of Asian American and Pacific Islander history, cultures, contributions, and whereas Ramsey County has the second largest population of Asian American and Pacific Islanders, with about 80,000 of them calling Ramsey County home, and whereas, according to Ramsey County most recent workforce statistics report, 12% of Ramsey County employees identify as Asian American and Pacific Islander and contribute greatly to the rich social fabric of our community. And whereas the Ramsey County Asian American and Pacific Islander communities' long and deeply rooted legacy reminds us of both proud and painful chapters of our journey, from fleeing tyranny and persecution to surviving and thriving despite the odds. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic and civil unrest highlighted pervasive racism, violence, discrimination, and xenophobia towards Asian American and Pacific Islanders, And whereas we honor the irreplaceable roles of Asian American and Pacific Islanders in Ramsey County, they have played a pivotal role and made a valuable economic and social contribution to Ramsey County as workers, business owners, and community members. And they have contributed more than their numbers suggest. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners declares May 20th, 21 as Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month in order to celebrate and amplify Asian joy, support Asian businesses, protect Asian communities, and recognize Asian accomplishments so that the cultures, histories, and stories of this community are seen and heard. And be it further proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners encourages all residents in the community to honor and celebrate our rich collective history by recognizing the contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to Ramsey County. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I believe we now have Terry and Chow and Chandia with us to speak. So is
Yes.
Terry? I think Terry would be the next one to speak here.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner Ortega. Thank you, Ramsey County, and also to all the county commissioners for honoring Asian Pacific American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. As a lifelong resident of Ramsey County, I'm really honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of the thousands of AAPI residents of Ramsey County. For many years, we have been invisible to many entities, and I'm glad that Ramsey County recognizes us. Us, our histories, our stories, and the many contributions we've made to the county over the years. The contributions are not just the thousands of AAPI residents, businesses, but also the many AAPI employees of Ramsey County, which included my father, who worked for the county for 15 years. And it is quite unfortunate that recent attention to the AAPI community is due because of these increased hate crimes against us. I appreciate that this proclamation acknowledges the harm, xenophobia, and root causes of this hate. It's important to name this harm as well as it is important to celebrate the AAPI community and our contributions. We are here to stay. Thank you very much on behalf of the residents.
Thank you very, very much. I know that you see real hands clapping. You don't hear them as much. We've seen hearts and hands up. And we're very, very thankful to have you here with us today, Terry, in recognition of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Are there others in the chamber who will be speaking and sharing?
Chair Carter, I have community member Chanita online, and then we'll close it out with Ms. Chow Yang.
Thank you very, very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. And hello, Terry, and everyone else who I see some familiar faces with. I just want to say thank you so much for recognizing an important month to so many who make up this great state of Minnesota, and also remembering that storytelling is currency for humanity, and that we must continue making visible and amplifying the stories, especially from our Indigenous and ethnic minorities who are Asian and Pacific Islander in this state. So just wanted to share that, and we appreciate the acknowledgement and hope that that continues to help bring light to the issues and struggles and beauty that we all are grappling with, especially during this pandemic. And also hoping that folks out there will remember too that how important culture, arts, and our creative organizations help make this state more visible, more lively and beautiful, and really irresistible, right? So thank you so much for supporting and continuing to make sure that we are being heard and seen and well supported and resourced as well. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Janita. And then we have one more speaker.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner Ortega. Alongside the Ramsey County Asian Descent Network, my name is Chow Yang. I work in public health for Ramsey County. So alongside our Ramsey County Asian Descent Network Employee Resource Group, our ERG, and our Asian American and Pacific Islander community partners and leaders, I want to say thank you, Ocho, for this historical proclamation. I want to thank Chair Carter, the County Board of Commissioners, and County Manager Ryan O'Connor's policy and planning team for your recognition and celebration of Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. There is a deep importance and significance of this proclamation currently during this pandemic and rise in social and racial consciousness in Ramsey County. The AAPI community is not a monolith and is made up of many different cultural subgroups and languages spoken. And yet, as a collective, our AAPI community is being impacted by disproportionate COVID-19 infection and death rates and within its subcultural groups. And so at the same time, facing increased hate crimes and overt xenophobia, as well as discrimination. And as an employee of Ramsey County, a first generation Hmong American community member and Ramsey County resident, I hope this proclamation is the beginning of a deeper commitment and sustained effort to continue amplifying the often invisible and dismissed voices of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and provide investment in AAPI leadership. The work is often difficult and cannot be done alone. At Ramsey County, the Asian Descent Network Employee Resource Group is an affinity group that supports employees and leaders of Asian descent at all levels to grow an organizational culture that aligns with Ramsey County's strategic plan and priorities. We utilize our cultural assets and leadership to determine our ADN priorities through collective consensus and participation of our Asian members and employees. And I want to thank my teammates and members of the Asian Descent Network ERG for their commitment and leadership, because what we do at Ramsey County would not be possible without a shared commitment to our employees and community. I want to thank Mi Chang, our co-chair, and all of our planning members, Hao Win, Ame Ya, Jenny Zhang, Jason Yang, Amy Zhang, and Mike Hang, and our ERG sponsors, Elizabeth Tolsman, Ling Becker, and Kiving. Many thanks. 我叫能到.
Thank you so very, very much. We all appreciate your being here with us today for this first recognition, clearly not the last, of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, for uplifting that we must recognize through the stories, all that is important, all of the good, all of the not so good, and acknowledge the storytelling as truth telling and the opportunity to join together around embracing the rich tapestry that we have, including Asian American and Pacific Islander community members. I'm so glad that we have staff here, that we have people from our community, because we're all a part of the Ramsey County team, working together to enhance all of our lives and to create a community where all are valued and thrive. We thank you so very much for being here to uplift this month together with us. And I would like to ask if anyone would like to share any events or a calendar, a location for a calendar that we might all refer to as we look to share in the celebrations and acknowledgement this month. If there is a
Madam
website
Chair, Madam Chair, we
yeah.
have someone come up to the mic. Just give
Okay.
us a sec. Thank you.
I thank you.
Hello everyone, magandang umaga sa inyo lahat. Ang pangalan ko si Mary Ann Quiros. Beautiful good morning to all of you. My name is Mary Ann Quiros. I just want to say thank you to Chow Yang for inviting my family and I here today. I didn't identify as Asian or Asian American until the first time my parents took the census in 1990, a year after we immigrated to these ancestral homelands of the Dakota and Ojibwe peoples. And although this proclamation specifically is for Ramsey County, according to the recent census, as Filipinos, Filipinas, Filipinx, we have surpassed 20,000 who call Minnesota home. We must remember that Asian peoples are not a monolith of people, but a complex mix of cultural traditions, which also includes colonization and globalization of our ancestral lands, which has resulted in us becoming immigrants, refugees, and citizens of the United States. As a proud member of the Filipinx for Immigrant Rights and Racial Equity here in Minnesota, and as co-founder of Indigenous Roots, I'm very proud to say that I am one of that 20,000 here who call Minnesota home and have been a resident of Ramsey County since our family immigrated here. Being a mother of 5 children, with my firstborn standing here with me today, my children know that they are not half of anything. They are not a quarter of anything. They proudly identify as Indigenous, American, Mexican, and of course, Filipinx. I invite you to celebrate Asian American Pacific Islander heritage every day, because it is not just 1 month, it is 365 days a year, as we identify as such every day of our lives. And that's what everyone sees when we walk out our homes. And so we invite you to Indigenous Roots. We have lots of events happening there that celebrate the multicultural diversity of the Twin Cities and Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I want to make sure that that everyone who is here has had the opportunity to speak. Are there more? It's just wonderful to have had you here, some in the chamber, some on the screen, together with us. And thank you. The calendar is 365 days a year, every day of every year, in which we should recognize Asian American and Pacific Islander in our community. I appreciate that. And we look forward to joining in with you this month and in coming months and years to celebrate the presence of our community members. I'm looking to the screen, and I know that all commissioners have appreciated your being here. I'll also share in the appreciation. We are thankful for the proclamation. I will check back in with Commissioner Ortega in case of final comments as we move forward.
Well, Madam Chair, I just want to say it amazed me that this is the first time we are having a proclamation for the Asian Pacific Islanders. But I'm glad we're here now, and we will continue to, as you said, continue to weave the tapestry in Ramsey County and include everybody. So thank you to the Asian community, and we look forward to celebrating with you all year long. Thank you.
Commissioner Carter, you're on mute.
Well, that doesn't work very well. Okay, just repeating the thanks so much for all of you being here, seeing those final reactions, and we look forward to seeing you in Ramsey County and in the community as we all move forward together. All right, that was a great moment. We're going to move on then to our COVID update, turning to County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Good morning. We're going to keep it as a COVID update for the coming weeks as we talk about vaccination rates and different pieces related to that. For a while, when we were more in the same thread of showing the dashboard and stuff, we went back and forth between information and an update. So we're just going to keep it posted as an update every week, and we'll try and keep them tight, specifically to some of the topics in front of us. I think the headliners I would just like to share as we jump in this week: you will see progress in our census tracts, particularly the ones that are the coming in at the lowest rate of vaccination, where we are working the hardest to do all that we can during the time we have. I want to extend a special thank you to our employees and visitors to our sites for complying with the continued mask policy of the last week. We did not have any issues that rose up and were significant, which shows that people continue to protect them and people around them. It's It's a great appreciation as we work to buy a little bit more time. And today is really going to be a chance to hear more about the specific strategies we are employing, not only into June, but beyond throughout the summer, but specifically here as we make a big push toward vaccination to hit some of the first targets that we have set forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy County Manager and Public Health Director Kathy Hadeen.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. Control room, if we could move to one of the maps that we will be sharing as I go through this data, that would be great. As you all know, last week we brought out the Social Vulnerability Index, and County Board, you received that map so you can look at it a little bit more closely yesterday in your email. As we move over to the map, one thing that I'll note is that we could celebrate here in Ramsey County is that we are actually at 73% of first dose vaccination. That's fantastic. I believe it's yay, that's worth a clap for sure. I believe we're the fourth highest vaccination rate across the whole state of Minnesota, next to Cook County up north, Olmsted, and Hennepin County. So proud of the work that's going on here. What's important to note, though, because as I say the 73% of first dose, the next question we tend to get is, well, why can't we lift masks in St. Paul? What County Manager O'Connor alluded to is we still have areas within our city and county that do not have that 73% first dose vaccination rate. So I know you're not seeing the map yet, and I'll just keep moving along until we can get that put up there. As we had shared last week, there are 3 areas that we are looking at to focus on, and one is 55130, which goes along the east side of the 35E freeway just north of downtown, 55106 and 55103. I'm happy to report that 55103 and 55106 rates have moved up to 55%. 55% of that vaccination rate for the first dose is really our minimum threshold that we are looking at in order to ensure that in order to figure out where we're going to focus our efforts around increasing vaccination rates. And so 55103 and 55106 have both moved into that 55%. 55130 is at 49%, and we have additional vaccination clinics beginning this week within those neighborhoods to improve those rates as well. And we can talk a little bit about that later if you want to go into detail about where those vaccination clinics will be. We've got some great feedback from high schools over the last week, both in White Bear Lake and New Brighton, so 55112 and 55110, both now seeing rates in the mid to upper 60%. As soon as Pfizer came out with the 12-plus age range for vaccinations, we got the go-ahead to work with school districts to increase vaccination rates. And school nurses and school superintendents have been very excited to partner to provide additional opportunities for vaccines within those sites. I believe before we move on, I also want to talk about our goal that we're really trying to move on here across the entire county system is to get each zip code up to 70%. So I said our minimum is 55%, and that's where we're going to be putting additional effort, but we really want to see 70% first dose vaccination rate and eventually second dose vaccination rate. And we're actually there in many places, both in the McGroveland Highland area as well as up in the Shoreview area and Roseville. And so community is doing a great job of getting themselves and their families out and getting vaccinated, which is fantastic. To give you some metrics for 12 plus, we actually have 67% of our residents 12 and over who have already been vaccinated, which is a fantastic number considering that 12 plus has only been eligible for a couple of weeks. And then again, we continue to monitor the 16 plus rates within each of those zip codes that I spoke of, 55130, 106, and 103. If you'd like, we could go to some questions around vaccination rates. We're actually working on an issue so that Sarah Hawley, who is our Racial and Health Equity Administrator, she's here today to talk about the mitigation and focusing on specific areas and communities around how we're going to increase vaccination rates. So Madam Chair, I don't know if you want to direct questions, that would be great.
Madam Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you. I have a hand up from Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Chair Carter. Kathy, I appreciate that update, and don't take this as Jim the Downer, but really more as a challenge on how we approach this, right? And I do appreciate that, you in the wrap up, you recognize that the goal is to get to 70%. And you talk about 55% being a minimum. But when we're talking about equity, there's only one number, and that's 73%. That's the same as what everybody is. And, my hope is that we could start actually just driving towards, there's no need to track 55. There's no need to track 60, 70. There's only one number to track. And that means all our community has the same ability to have that same access and be at that same number. And so I hope you take that in a positive light and as a challenge, because I think even how we talk about this, we've got to learn how to talk about it differently if we're really truly going to talk about true equity. And the more we still fracture it out, the more we still have these subsets, the more, we have to acknowledge that we're not doing as well in 55106 or 55130. And we need to know how we're going to focus and get it there, but there should only be one number that we're striving for, and that's the same number the rest of the community is at.
Madam Chair.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yep. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonough, I really appreciate that. One thing that I had left out, the purpose of that minimum had to do with the pressure that was put on our communities when the lifting of the mask mandate at the state level. There's immense pressure to lift the masks, and we are pushing for increased rates, and that is where that rate comes from. You are absolutely right. We want to see 100% vaccination rate across all of our communities, and we know that that's going to be difficult, but we know that 70%, 75%, even 80% is absolutely doable, especially with intense focus in specific areas. So I appreciate that you brought that out and absolutely agree with your message.
And thank you very much. Commissioner Matas-Castillo.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank your team because I know, Kathy, they're working really hard. This weekend, there was a pop-up vaccination event on Rose Avenue with among food trucks. So that people were eating and getting their vaccines. And so there's some great creativity going on. And I also heard that Ramsey County passed its 50,000th vaccine given this past week. And so I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate your team that are really giving vaccines at rates that are unprecedented. And so just wanted to take a moment to do that. And then a question, and I think maybe Sarah Hawley will address this, but as your team is rolling out and going into community and being really creative, how can we help get the word out? Because I think we obviously have enough vaccines now. We are in many places. What's the best way that we can help get community out to get vaccinated?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Matas-Castillo, thank you so much. I'm going to hold on the answer for you from Sarah. Sarah has a presentation that she'll provide, and it'll probably get to that. But thank you so much for highlighting 50,000 doses from our vaccination team is huge, and it's so fantastic. And it's one of the reasons why we're doing so well here in Ramsey County. So thank you so much for lifting that up, and for the pop-ups that pop up within our community. It's a great way to use that term again. They're fantastic to see how community is playing a huge role in ensuring that our residents and community are safe.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Matas-Castillo. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Kathy, and everybody's always done a good job. It's amazing. My question is, and I was asked just that this weekend, let me first ask, what is the demographic group where we need to make inroads? I know we have zip codes, but is it the younger generation? Is it the younger folks at this point?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ortega, thank you for the question. We do have a lot of young people in our community. If we were actually to count everyone and who's been vaccinated, we're actually at a rate of 57%. And so that is every single person who resides in Ramsey County. So we actually have quite a bit of work to do with our younger population. And what we had talked about last week and what we're seeing now, especially with 12 plus eligible, is that families have been waiting to bring their whole families in to get vaccinated. And so as we're hearing more about Moderna coming online for 12 plus soon, hopefully, as well as Pfizer being available, and then the work that's being done to get younger age groups eligible, we're going to see more and more families come in, and we're going to see these rates go up pretty quickly.
One more question, Madam Chair. Kathy, recently there's been, in the news, there's been not as much, but still it's been reported that there might be some side effects for younger folks. I guess speak to that, because I don't know if that's an impediment or barrier to getting to younger folks, because their parents in essence make that decision, right? I'm just trying to get a sense. You start hearing different health issues or side effects to some of the vaccination for younger folks.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Ortega, thanks for that question. Dr. Ogawa is here and can actually address that.
I was going to ask for, I'm glad you guys are here, because every weekend I get a question from somebody I cannot answer.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ortega, the most recent information that's been coming out is some concerns regarding myocarditis specifically, which is an inflammation of the heart muscle related to the messenger RNA vaccines. All of the cases that have been reported are mild. They have happened within about 4 days of usually the second dose. The inflammation usually needs no treatment, and the individuals have recovered completely. Again, I'll mention that this is the system working, though. The FDA is looking at all of those cases, is reviewing the data as it comes in, and is making sure that the vaccines are safe. Myocarditis was actually being reported with COVID infection, especially in younger individuals as well. This was one of the reasons that we wanted to be able to vaccinate against COVID for young people. And so the FDA and the CDC are taking all of these cases, though, very seriously and are monitoring. Thus far, the rates are showing that they're just the standard rates that can occur also in this age group from any form of virus. So we're being careful, but we're also working towards protecting everyone against actually getting a COVID infection with the vaccines. Yeah.
So, doctor, so far, there are no long-term effects as far as we know today.
Correct. That's the best we can say.
Okay.
In order to be considered long-term, you have to be with a virus for a long time. And we still don't have the experience yet, more than, say, a year and a half with COVID. But with the vaccines, we're not seeing anything that is residual staying around either.
Thank you very much, doctor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I wanted to emphasize is, it's great to be able to get outside and to go to different events. I generally am still wearing my mask, even though I'm fully vaccinated, because just out of precaution for others. And so, but one of the things that I think is very important is I know that as vaccinations go up, testing goes down, which makes sense. but that we can't forget about testing because it takes it from both sides. If you've and we do know that there are more cases, and maybe Kathy can speak to that a little bit as well. The rates are lower, clearly. The more you get vaccinated, the less infections you're going to have, but that doesn't mean there aren't any. And how we can really attack this from both angles. Because the fact is we're not through this yet. And I know that as we get more and more vaccinations and getting out into the community more, which again is absolutely fabulous, because I think we're all, I mean, the COVID fatigue has been with us for quite some time at this point. But Kathy, if you could speak to that, because we want to make sure that, especially with variants, that we're making sure that when people need to be tested, that they are tested so that we can really get this under control.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Reinhardt, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. You're absolutely correct. We need to continue to get tested, both for families who have children in school every couple of weeks and for people who are experiencing symptoms, as well as if you've been exposed. And even people who have been vaccinated who are experiencing symptoms should go and get tested. We've been seeing rates this, I don't know what month we're in, this April, that have been still as high as, I should say cases as over 200 cases a day, which is higher than it was prior to the spikes in November. So last year this time and even through the summer. More recently, we've had cases, 150 a day just here in Ramsey County. So we are still seeing illness. We are still seeing spread. It's important that even though it's nice out and the governor has lifted mask mandates when you are outside and in other spaces, that people are still vigilant. They are still masking when they're around other people, specifically indoors, especially if people have not been vaccinated, because that still works to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. And yes, please continue to go get tested. The Roy Wilkins Auditorium at the River Center still has a state testing site as well as a vaccination site. And so we continue to have those opportunities close to us, and we'll continue to work with our health systems as well to make sure that testing and vaccinations are available. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call on Commissioner McGuire and then check back with Commissioner McDonough. I see your hand is up, and we'll see if that's a second question.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Hadeen and Dr. Ogawa and everyone who's doing such a great job with this. So my question is maybe for Dr. Ogawa, but and maybe we'll get to this, but as I'm hearing about all the incentives that are being given, tickets to games and things, I just want to make sure that people aren't thinking they should get vaccinated twice so they can get a ticket to a game. But, I just was wondering if our incentives are creating some sort of, unintended consequence there. But maybe they're giving tickets to the games if you show your immunization card. I mean, I'm hoping that's what they're showing, that it's not just if you come and get a vaccine, but that you show your vaccine card. So do you know anything about that? And what are the implications of getting the vaccine twice so you can get a free ticket to a game? I'm just curious about that.
Madam Chair and Commissioner McGuire, a few questions in there. I'm going to focus on Dr. Ogawa can help focus on the implications of the number of times you get vaccinated. You should only be vaccinated one time, and that is a first and second dose for Pfizer and Moderna, and one dose for Johnson & Johnson. As to the incentives and how those are being done with, our professional sports teams, we'll have to connect with them to understand how they're working through that. But Dr. Ogawa is here and can address the dosage.
Chair Carter, Commissioner McGuire, it's true, just like Deputy County Manager Hadeen mentions, ideally you should only get vaccinated one time against COVID with a single agent. There have been some reports of individuals who have gotten multiple doses, even on the same day by accident, and there haven't been any significant side effects associated with that. We certainly wouldn't recommend it. The other issue is that the good news is All of these vaccines are being recorded within MIC, which is our state database. Ideally, people are monitoring for that as well as we especially get out and begin to see more vaccine. People will be checking MIC, making sure that individuals are actually getting the correct dose of second doses, things like that. Most of the sites at the sporting events are Johnson & Johnson, which are a single dose as well, which is a little bit different. But I'm hoping most people are not going for a dose just to get the incentive. It's true.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I just was curious about that, and I don't want to be cynical about it either, but I do want everyone to get vaccinated. So thank you.
Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Chair Carter. Yeah, real quick. I was on a SHAC executive board meeting on Friday, and some of the outstate public health folks and commissioners was talking about a disturbing trend they're seeing outstate. I hadn't heard about it in the metro, and Commissioner Cascada hadn't heard about it occurring in Olmsted County, but they're seeing an uptick in bullying in the schools of kids that are getting vaccinated. And I'm just wondering, as we're getting down into that 12 and older, if we're seeing some of that same stuff here in the metro. A couple of the outstate public health folks said it was really quite bad in their communities on this bullying of kids that are getting vaccinated. I hope we don't see it here, but I told them I'd bring it. I told them we always get the update, and I'd bring it to our board meeting here and put it on our radar. If we're not seeing it, if we are seeing it, I'm hoping that we're working with our schools really closely here to prevent that from happening.
Madam Chair and Commissioner McDonough, thanks for bringing that here. That is not something that we are hearing in our communities here in Ramsey County, but absolutely we'll check in with our schools team to see if they are hearing that with their school partners across all of our districts and work to help mitigate that. I think what I had reported last week and what I'm hearing from a lot of different people is young people are pretty excited to get the vaccine around here. It means that they can go out and do more things with their friends and connect and be in a whole bunch of different situations, positive situations. So I appreciate you bringing that here, and we'll check into it.
And thank you very much. Commissioner Reinhardt, your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first of all, just a quick comment. I'm not quite sure how you get accidentally 2 shots in one day. So that kind of confused me. But I think one of the things to note about this, and I had not heard this either, Commissioner McDonough, and I appreciate the fact that you brought it up here. But it seems pretty obvious that if kids are bullying other kids that have gotten the vaccine, that's coming from home. That doesn't come from anything other than behavior that they're seeing about no need to be vaccinated. And so hopefully with our vaccination rates, we're probably in better shape because the parents are also seeing the need to get vaccinated. But I think that's a bigger problem than just with the kids. That's coming from their homes. And I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. I don't have any other hands up. I would just like to ask one final question, and then thank you so much for the updates and information. And that is around boosters. Can you just share with us what is being shared at this point in time about the need for boosters as we move forward and how soon one might expect that could occur, or if we're just not ready to talk about that? I'm beginning to see little pieces of information in that regard.
Madam Chair, thank you for that question. Dr. Ogawa is here and she can address it, and then actually we'll pivot back to County Manager O'Connor to introduce Sarah Hawley, who's here today as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Carter. Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a little bit early. Many of the boosters that are being tested now and being looked at are specifically for variants that have been identified. Also, we're still monitoring for how long protection lasts. And again, that's difficult because we can monitor antibodies, but we also know that immune responses are bigger than antibodies. And so we're also just monitoring to see how long individuals who have been vaccinated stay protected, essentially. I do expect we will need boosters eventually, but it's really difficult to know if it's going to be fall, if it's going to be annual. It's really difficult. It also depends on if we can truly reduce spread and reduce variants being formed, then we can help protect against the need for boosters that are specifically focused on variants as well. So,
Thank you for that early information. I realize we'll hear more later. And thank you, Deputy County Manager Hadeen. Take us on.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we're going to do this without the tech today. We're having a little bit of challenge in here, and so we'll send out the slides that we had afterwards. But Sarah Holly's here, one of our racial and health equity administrators, who's also a part of the incident management response, working directly with the public health branch within the incident management team. And a week ago, after our conversation here, the charge that went back to our incident management team is we need to put every available effort and resource into the vaccination in our lowest census tracts possible. You're going to hear a bit about what that looks like on the ground today as we spool that work up. I want to thank Sarah, Prince, and Mi Cheng for their work with the Racial Equity and Community Engagement Response Team. I also want to thank the public health staff, the folks leading the incident management team work, the folks in the finance branch who are working to execute and figure out how to make this all happen on a 3 or 4 week timeline. We want to be out as soon as possible and do as much as we can within a month. But the real vision here then is to carry forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Holly.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. On behalf of the Racial Equity and Community Engagement Response Team, I come before you today to talk about a partnership that we have and that we will continue with St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health, our Communications Department, and many other partners within the county and our community. We are aiming to work and launch our COVID-19 culturally specific and focused vaccine initiative that will focus on specific zip codes. Those zip codes include 55130, 55103, 55106, and specifically our racially and ethnically diverse communities in Ramsey County. Our goal here is to increase vaccination rates above that 55% that was noted earlier through the end of summer with a specific focus in June. The goal of this initiative is to reduce the spread and impact of COVID-19 through increased vaccine media outreach, education, engagement that is medically accurate, culturally specific, and linguistically appropriate, that connects residents to community vaccine sites and related resources. And so we're taking a kind of a three-prong approach to this initiative. And I want to mention again and really reiterate what County Manager O'Connor mentioned earlier, is that we're partnering with our incident command system in public health, our communications department, and research, and many partners within the county to make sure that we can implement this effectively. So the first focus area of this initiative is really what we did back in June of 2020, if you remember back that far, almost a year ago. Research implemented our media messaging campaign with community partners. And so we are lifting that initiative back up, refreshing it, and it's going to be called the Culturally Specific Media and Messaging Project. And so this project and initiative is really going to be focused on targeted media and messaging with our diverse media partners. And so we'll be working alongside our communications department, Director Sigvalin and his team, to make sure that we're identifying diverse media partners and agencies to get key messaging out, not only about the importance of vaccines, but also to drive our residents and community partners to community pop-up sites and to make sure that they have accurate and informed information about the importance of vaccines. The second approach that research is going to be implementing alongside public health is kind of a refresher of our Trusted Messenger Initiative, which we're going to call the Trusted Cultural Community Messenger and Connector Initiative. And so this is really going to be targeted vaccine education, outreach, and connection to community sites. And so we're really trying to mesh the two initiatives that we did this past winter and spring, which was our Cultural Community Connector Initiative, pairing that with our Trusted Messenger Initiative. And this is really important because we're going to get out those critical information and education to community. We're going to have community partners that are trusted in the community that our residents can go to ask questions, get more information about the vaccine, and then essentially where they can connect to a community site to receive the vaccine. So this is going to be really important. That third approach, as Deputy County Manager Hadeen has mentioned, is really increasing vaccine uptick, right, as a mitigation strategy. And so what we're looking to do here is really have some culturally focused vaccine distribution or pop-up sites throughout the month of June and throughout the summer, because we know that, as County Manager O'Connor mentioned, June is going to be our biggest push, but we know that we still will have people that are hesitant and maybe still have questions beyond the month of June. And so those are our three main initiatives for the vaccine initiative in partnership with public health. I want to mention just a few things before we get to questions, is that the Trusted Media and Messaging Initiative is really going to be an initiative that aids the county in getting those culturally specific, relevant, and linguistically appropriate messages out to community. We want to first layer in messaging, just general messaging around the importance of vaccines. And then we want to increase that by directing people to pop-up sites, but also connecting with community trusted messengers. So that's going to be really important as a part of that initiative. The Connector Initiative, as I mentioned, is really going to be that person-centered approach. And so we really want people to be able to connect with culturally specific agencies and individuals that are trusted. We've learned through our community conversations that the Trusted Messenger Initiative was so important during this time. And so we want to continue to lift up that initiative and really listen to community and lean into that. And so that's been really important to research and to public health to make sure that we're centering community voice and doing what community is essentially requesting of the county. For those last two parts, I just want to mention that we want to continue to lift up the great work of public health and the incident command system by focusing our vaccine pop-up sites, making sure that people know that, what's already available, because we do have vaccine clinics happening very frequently. So we want to make sure people are aware of what we currently are offering. But then we also want to partner with some trusted community partners to maybe even have a few more pop-up sites in these areas where we know people have limited access, maybe transportation, maybe there's a language barrier, whatever that is, we want to start to address that very quickly. The last thing I want to mention is that we are exploring how we can do larger scale vaccine pop-up sites, and that's something that we will consider, but we do know that the Trusted Messenger and culturally specific pop-up sites have been pretty effective, and we want to continue that momentum. On behalf of research and our public health department, those are the three initiatives that we're going to focus on, as County Manager O'Connor mentioned, over the next month and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And just to wrap that piece up, we've been making pushes throughout. You've been hearing about that, but now's not the time. We're doubling down at this moment in time, recognizing the urgency in front of us and the need to push well beyond 70%, as was discussed earlier today. We don't want to stop there, and we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and well-informed and has every opportunity to get a vaccine. We're trying to take advantage of available resources at the federal and state level, as well as managing through the COVID resources we've had available to us. And this is part of that incident management push of marshaling every resource. And I want to thank everyone who worked really hard over the last week to spool this up, and we'll send out the slides as a follow-up. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
go
County
ahead.
Manager, can I make one more comment? I want to respond
Please
to
do.
a question that came up earlier around our youth and young adults. I want to point out that research actually pivoted this past winter and spring by including our youth and young adult focus area as we build, because we heard from community and we looked at the data, right? You go where the data is telling you to go, right? And so we knew that we needed to make a concerted effort to focus on our young people. And so we continue to do that between November and February, and we will make sure that that's a part of this response, along with making sure that our racial and ethnic communities that we identified, and that where we're seeing an uptick in COVID-19 cases, where we're seeing less vaccines happening, that we do focus on those communities. And so I just wanted to mention that as a question that came up earlier. And then the other thing that I want to respond to is, what can you do as our county board commissioners, right? That question came up earlier, and I would say, sharing vaccine opportunities, the community pop-up sites. People trust you all, right? They listen, they call you whenever they have a need or a question. So I would say that's very important. And then if you receive the vaccine, talk about it. I think when we're reducing stigma and fear, I think it's important for us to take a human-centered approach around, I did this and I'm okay, and I feel fine. And so I would say that making sure that we all are champions and ambassadors in this. Public health really looks to community to also be able to tell the story, talk about the success, and also talk about the challenge and barriers. So I would say we are all champions in this work. Thank you.
Thank you for being such a champion and for not just doing things better as you go, but for looking for the evidence and doing even better things. If we're going to reach the level of vaccination that we need, we have to make sure to do that. Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Sarah, this is really good. I really appreciate this update and the work that you and your team have done working with the public health folks here, because this is what's needed now moving forward. I brought this up last week, and I just want to make sure I say it out loud again here, because you've identified so many of the potential barriers, using trusted community leaders. But a piece of this, too, sometimes is just the availability or access, right? It's not, so many of the folks in these zip codes we're talking about are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs. They have childcare issues. They can't, put 5 kids on the bus and get down to Roy Wilkins. So I want to make sure we're thinking about how accessible we are in these communities. And that means, evenings or early mornings or, Sundays, maybe not the traditional times that we would think would work, but really trying to make sure we're available when it works for the community members we're trying to reach. And I know you get that, but I just want to make sure we don't lose that in this piece here, because sometimes it's just as simple as being there when they are available to be able to get the vaccination.
Thank you for that underscore. Sarah, did you want to share anything back with? Go ahead.
For sure. Thank you, Commissioner McDonough, Madam Chair. This actually came up in our discussion with the research team yesterday around access and availability. And so I think as we continue to learn more about what community has said, what's working and what's not working, we want to lift that up. And so that's definitely a part of this response. Public Health just wrapped up a session or a series of focused community conversations around vaccines. And so I think we can lift some of that information up and see, what people were saying around, what you're saying, Commissioner McDonough, around access, time, availability. And so I think that's why it's so important to make sure that we're partnering with our community partners to host those pop-up sites and making sure that we're flexible and actually offering it. Because I think access is a huge, huge barrier, right? And then making sure that people, if they make a split-second decision to go get a vaccine on a Saturday, that they have somewhere to go. And we've heard those stories too. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's all important, and we'll definitely take that under consideration.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Commissioner McGuire, knowing that we're winding down on questions now and moving toward the end of our update. Thank you, Commissioner McGuire.
I lower my hand, but not my mute. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Sarah, for all of your work, all of you and your team. I think it's really amazing, and it's the reason we're getting to the good numbers that we're getting. Could you just clarify? You used 2 terms: cultural community connector and a trusted messenger. And just if you could help me, is there a difference between those 2? I mean, I love that you're using both of them, and just help me with understanding that.
For sure. Commissioner McGuire, thank you. Great question. And so we've learned over time that our partners have essentially been doing both. The folks that are the trusted messengers are the connectors. The folks that are the connectors are the trusted messengers. And so we're definitely, I use that word pivot. We pivot all the time, and this is why it's so important to center community voice. And so the trusted cultural community messenger and connector is basically a hodgepodge. We're bringing together those 2 initiatives, and essentially they're one and the same. The difference between the connector is that you're making that direct connection with a person, a community group, to essentially identify services or resources. And so we really want the trusted messenger to be able to have the correct information, to be able to engage and do outreach in the way that's culturally specific or that's relevant to that community. And then we want to add on that connector piece that it was kind of missing from the trusted messenger piece. where people can actually, say, Sarah Holly is called and she wants to be connected to a community pop-up site. They know who to call. They know how to link folks to transportation. They even could take it a step further and say, hey, I know you need financial assistance or housing. They have the access to the resources that people need to make those further connections. And so within our Community Connector initiative, this past winter and spring, our community connectors had access to important information, not only county services, but community services that they could share with the people that they were connecting with. So if a family was in need of food or shelter or childcare, they had that information. And so we're gonna bring those two together because it's still important that people are connected to resources, but we really want people to be connected to vaccine sites and really be aware of why it's important to get a vaccine. If they have questions or hesitancies, they have that person to help answer those questions or to basically direct them to a resource that can.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate that. And yeah, great work done by both of them. And if they're included in one, that's great too. So, Manager, I have one more question, and I don't know if this is for Dr. Ogawa or who, but it occurs to me that as Sarah said, what we can do is be good messengers ourselves and say, well, I was vaccinated, and that was great, and I feel good, but I still want to wear a mask. So there's some, there's things going on out there where they say, well, and if you haven't been vaccinated, for sure wear a mask. But the fact is, I've been totally vaccinated, but I still want to wear a mask. So I don't want people to think that I haven't been vaccinated by wearing a mask. So could just help me with that, because I know that it's important to still wear a mask indoors, and I'm more comfortable with that. So when I go to Costco and Target, who doesn't require it anymore, and I'm sad about that, I'm going to wear a mask. But it's not because I haven't been vaccinated. So I just want to know how to, if someone can help me think about that or how I can relay that to people. Well, then why are you wearing a mask?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, Sarah's on the screen, so we should let her answer it. Yeah. I'll take it. I'll actually take it because I think it's as much a non-medical response as it is a medical one, right? The medical advice is what it is around unvaccinated individuals and being the best mitigation approach that exists. For vaccinated individuals, we see that the vaccine is effective, and that's why we continue to push that as the primary strategy and talk about it here every week. However, I had a number of employees reach out over the last week, both leading up to and beyond the passage of last week's updated mask policy and what that meant for visitors. And they ran the gamut, those opinions. And I just want to acknowledge that here. I've had a chance to write back to every person who wrote and say thanks for weighing in. And through that process, that was one of the questions that actually comes up. For some, it's they can't get vaccinated. For others, it's they are worried that others didn't get vaccinated, or they still just feel like they're more comfortable wearing a mask. The answer is it's okay to wear one. We're not banning masks. We're not saying in the time of COVID right now that that's what we're going to do. If you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, then wear a mask. There's no downside in terms of it's not going to make you less vaccinated. So if you're vaccinated, but you feel for a while more comfortable easing your way back in after a 16-month time that's been pretty tough on everybody, and that's a part of your process back, we want to make employees and visitors feel comfortable in every setting, and that'll continue to be the policy even as it gets revised moving forward.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all of the questions. Thanks for all of the update and information. We've spent a good deal of time here, and we have a number of things that we will need to do so that we can get to our morning workshop. I want to just check back in with you, County Manager O'Connor, as we move forward toward our administrative agenda.
No, I don't have anything other than just to say that represents a week's worth of work. It was a busy week following up on last week's mask conversations here, and I appreciate the time to let us walk through it on camera here today. And thanks to the team who continue to show up week after week.
All right, with very, very great appreciation for all of the work that is happening. We will move on to Commissioner Ortega and our administrative agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move item number 4, Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Award. Item number 5, appointments to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Those are the only 2 items, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the motion and for the second. Commissioner Reinhardt, is there any comment or question on these items? I believe I have a question from Commissioner Fretham.
Just a comment. I didn't want to pull it, but I just wanted to note how many exceptional candidates we had for the Parks and Recreation Commission from District 1. It was a very difficult choice. And I know for me, ultimately, our Parks and Rec Director really reiterated a need for a certain skill set from our incumbents. So wanting to know from the other applicants that it was such a hard choice and they were all incredible. And I plan to reach out to each of them and hope to involve them in some way in our decisions.
And we are thankful for the service on our number of committees and appreciate that people are willing to serve with us and will continue to engage people in our community. Thank you for pulling that. Any additional comments or questions? Then I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Fretham.
Aye.
Mattis Castillo.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you very much. The administrative items have passed. We'll move on to a brief legislative update. We do have a workshop this afternoon, and so thank you to Commissioner McGuire.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We will have a workshop, so a lot of things will be covered there. But I just want to let people know that the legislature is still in session. They did not finish. I mean, they're still working. They're going to go into special session probably by June 14th, because that is the day that the governor's executive powers ends, and so they think that's a day that they would go back into special session. So they're continuing to work, though, even though they're not in session. And conference committee budgets are due by this Friday, and the policy language is due by next Friday. That's a wish. They're not sure that's going to happen, but that's the goal. And so we're just hopeful that they are going to reach that. And we've been continuing to be active. I would just say that Jenna Rourke and Melissa Finnegan and our team have just been continuing to work and sending letters to the conference committee attendees or the conferees to let them know what our issues are in each bill. And that's been really helpful for the conferee. And so the work is continuing, of course, and we're hopeful that they reach, even though they said they reached agreement, there's still a lot of agreements that need to be reached. So we're just hopeful for that. And June 14th will hopefully be a day that they'll be in making some of those agreements.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire, and we are looking forward to, after our adjournment here at the board, to a conversation about our legislative agenda, both at the state and national levels, and workshop together at a separate link.
And Madam Chair, I just don't want to forget to thank Commissioner Mattis Castillo, who's on our legislative committee as well. We're continuing to meet, so thank you.
Thank you for your stewardship of our agendas. I'm turning to County Manager O'Connor for County Connections.
Thanks, Madam Chair. 2 updates this morning. I'm going to invite CFO Alex Kutza up for the second update. And as she's moving up to the podium, the American Rescue Plan funds, the first disbursement of 2, approximately $53 million, was received by the county this past week. We'll be in front of the board next week asking for you to formally accept those funds. Hopefully we can convince you it would be a good idea. But in all seriousness, we'll talk about it then, and we'll also do a brief update with the CFO at that time on what we know about the interim draft guidance. It's not final guidance yet on what the funds can be spent on, but we know more than we used to, and we're trying to be cautious as we learn. So we'll spend a few minutes next week on that just to set baseline as we move forward, but excited to continue forward. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Kutza.
Great. Thank you, County Manager O'Connor, Madam Chair, and Commissioners. I get to announce that the third in what is called a Triple Crown, I recently found out, of the Government Finance Officers Association honors was awarded to Ramsey County for the 2019 Popular Annual Financial Report. So we just received that award, which makes it so we've received for 2019 the Achievement for Excellence in our Financial Reporting, the Distinguished Budget Award, and now the award for our PAFR. If you're interested in seeing it, you can go to ramseycounty.us/PAFR. The reviewers noted that it provides super useful information about our local economy, major industries, and demographics, plus a wealth of information about our financial status. So I want to just raise that up and thank particularly Matt Phillips and Renee Vogt for all of their work on this, and the communications team who worked together to get this information out for everyone to access.
Thanks for sharing that great update, Alex. And I'll just end by saying, as a non-finance person, like, not every organization creates a public annual financial or popular annual financial report. It's actually a pretty unique thing to go through the process to do, and it's definitely a demonstrated step towards the transparency and accountability that this organization wants to put forth. So big deal on the award side. Happy to share that news with you today. And that's all we got, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Great information. We really appreciate the hard work. We don't take it for granted that we get the triple crown in our budget and finance areas. We know it's because of the hard work that our staff and leadership are doing day to day. Thank you so very much to Alex Kutza for being here to share that good news. And yes, we think that you'll be able to convince us. We desperately need the ARP funds that are coming our way to address issues and circumstances within our community. So we'll look forward to that coming up next week. I'm going to turn then to commissioners for brief outside board and committee updates as we move toward the conclusion of our meeting. Starting with Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be as brief as possible, but there was a lot going on last week. One of the things, the area that I'd like to concentrate on is on climate change, environmental justice, environmental equity. The National Association of Counties, Resilient Counties Advisory Board met, and we did hear from the second VP candidates for NACO, including our very own Commissioner McGuire. She is also a member of the Resilient Counties Advisory Board. But climate change and actions that we are taking specifically, and I'll pivot now to the National Association of Conservation districts throughout the United States, and I am the NACO representative to their Climate Action Task Force. Really had put a lot of time and effort into a letter to the Federal Department of Ag, and there was also then a follow-up for a White House briefing on the department, on what is happening with the Department of Ag and climate change. And then the other item that I had talked about last week and was really thrilled to be a part of was through the University of Minnesota. It's a binational virtual meeting, and this one was on the master plan for shaping the region's energy transition in Steinberg County, Germany. This is through the University of Minnesota Institute on the Environment, University of Minnesota, and the exchange of information is pretty incredible, obviously, in trying to make sure that we're looking at climate change as a global issue, which it is clearly. And the time for action is now, and you're going to hear me say that so many times over the next couple of months, especially, because literally we've got about 6 years. And if we don't make major changes, we are in our life, our sustainability of life on Earth is in jeopardy. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I'm also trying to make sure that people understand that this is not something that we can wait on. We need to deal with the climate consequences of actions that we take. Those that are outside of our control are one thing, but those that are inside our control, and there's a lot, we need to take action on. So the other couple of items I wanted to report on, I am the liaison to the Ramsey County Library Board of Trustees. And as we all know, we're going through a lot of different things at the library board, but I was able to discuss and reinforce the fact that the library board and the county board's alignment on our vision, mission, and goals is very strong. Prosperity, opportunity, well-being, and accountability for all through the lens of equity. We're on the same page with that. And what we are really working towards right now, and where there is a lot of information and communication that needs to take place, is on how we do that within the structure that has changed for the county, and how that affects the change for the library board and how we move forward. One of the concerns that was raised and has been raised for the last couple of library board meetings is the fact that we need to have a facilitated discussion on the how side of getting things in line. So when we talk about alignment, we're really talking about how we do that. And I'm happy to report that I know that we are what I had asked for, and it seems like we're on track to do that, is to have that facilitated discussion with the library board, who provided the name of 5 facilitators. And Deputy County Manager Berg and staff are really working to get that in place before the June meeting. And one of the main issues there is to have the county attorney's office talk to the county board, and then have that be part of the facilitated discussion as well on what are the responsibilities of both. Of the county board, ultimately we are responsible for what happens within our borders and our budget, obviously, but also the statutory requirements for the library board, so that we're making sure that we are being respectful of all of that and how it works together. So again, our goals are in alignment. Now we have to figure out how to get the actual operations in alignment with our new structure, and that's incredibly important so that we can all do better. The other item I wanted to point out is that we have, with the spring, we all know that there are a lot of nonprofits that are doing fundraisers. And they do them every year, but the fact of the matter is, with COVID last year and even now, many of those are still doing virtual events, and how important it is, our partners within the nonprofit community, on everything from domestic violence to the environment to the arts and culture, you name it. And the nonprofits out there are such an important part of the fabric of our community. And so I encourage folks to participate and to be as generous as they can be for our partners, so that we can work together on that. Most recently, the Northland Cup, the hockey game that's between the city of St. Paul and Ramsey County. We weren't able to do it last year in the way we normally do, nor this year, but we still had an event. And I know that the event is live streaming right now, so I hope people will look at that. I also was able to participate in the Lakeshore Players Theater Gala. So again, there are so many partners out there, and wanting to reinforce, as I think was pointed out with the COVID vaccine, we are messengers and leaders. And so, looking to our partners so that we can all do better is, again, something that's important. And finally, actually, I have another finally, but I think it's really important, and I want to bring it up here, is I had a number of conversations specifically with the city of North St. Paul, but also with the city of Maplewood and White Bear Lake in the last week on the importance of communication, and making sure that as a board that we are really reaching out to our partners in the city of St. Paul. We are working on a number of issues, including trying to provide information on the HRA levy that's being proposed and how that's going to work and what it doesn't do, and a number of other issues that it's incredibly important. And I want to, not really for the board, but for those that are listening, to understand that if there is an issue that comes up, we're trying very, very hard not to surprise anyone when it comes to policies at the county board. But we really, if there's an issue that comes up, don't be afraid to contact your county commissioner and say, hey, what's this about? And really doing a good job as far as communication. And I know our staff does do a good job, but I wanted to make sure that folks know that they can reach out to us. And then this is my finally, because it was added with the county connections, and that is as budget chair, and I know Commissioner Matas Castillo as vice chair of the budget committee, the AAA bond rating, the GFOA awards. We are, I think, at least the last time they had them out there, we are the only county in Minnesota that gets both of those and have done that consistently for going on 20 years. That's pretty amazing. And what that means to the confidence that the market has and the millions of dollars that are saved on our bond rating is really significant. And so I wanted to raise that up once again and congratulate our staff and this board and on the work that is done in that area, because that again is no small feat, and how much of a difference it makes to our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. You had a number of items packaged, and we appreciate your highlighting the importance of each one of them in our ongoing work. I'm going to move on then to Commissioner Fretham.
No update for me this week.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham. Commissioner Matas Castillo.
Yes, I'll be really quick. We had I've been participating in the unique projects work group of the Metropolitan Council and also serve on the land use committee. And following Commissioner Reinhardt's comments about environmental justice, it has been raised up on the Metropolitan Council as well to focus our priorities and funding on environmental justice through a racial justice lens. And so good work happening in that direction as we build out what that looks like and how projects get funded moving forward. So it's good to see that the Met Council is moving in a similar direction with assistance of the work group. Also, I just wanted to share, we had the Finance Committee meeting of the Recycling and Energy Center, and we have an upcoming board meeting there as well. But just want to share, because of our work towards the enhancements at the Recycling Center around being able to get more non-ferrous materials out of the trash, as well as our enhancements moving toward organics recycling. It is great to report that we are ahead of schedule and under budget continuously, which has allowed us actually to bring on 2 additional staff to start working in community and with community on our next step. So it's really exciting work happening there for our community on ways. And then lastly, I just wanted to share, last week we had another incident of gun violence outside the Frogtown Rec Center. And this was a situation with young kids that had 2 kids injured from gun violence. And what I wanted to just share is that the work that our Healing Streets group, Danny Gibbons and Mark, have been doing in community alongside our partners at the City of St. Paul, with our law enforcement, with the Parks and Rec, really has been astounding, with the quick reaction to reach out to families to make sure the families involved were connected to resources and healing, and to work through that trauma. And so we're doing really good work. Doesn't often get mentioned, but there's a team on the ground ready to react, to engage with community, to really stop out how we prevent any additional violence. And then as we continue to do our work, as we grow and develop the program, is to truly disrupt violence in our community. And so I just wanted to share that and to thank the Healing Streets team to be very quick and reactive and to be engaged and in partnership with our community and our law enforcement. So with that, I will stand.
Thank you, Commissioner Matas Castillo, for those updates. Commissioner McDonough.
You could go right to Commissioner McGuire, Madam Chair.
I will do that. Thank you, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I had to shut my window because they choose Tuesday mornings to do the lawn around here. Anyway, I just want to, just a couple things, Madam Chair, and I'll be brief. First of all, just want to thank Commissioner Matas Castillo for all her work on TAB and unique projects. She's been doing such great work there, and just thank you for that. And Commissioner Reinhardt for the library board. work. That is just really important work. I serve on MELSA, the regional library system, and we met last week, and we are doing our strategic planning. But it's so important that all of our libraries are doing the good work that they're doing, and it's great to be on the regional system. But thanks, Commissioner Reinhardt, for all of your work on the library board. I was at a Rotary meeting, and I heard from Amanda Brinkman, who works for Deluxe Check Printers, and she does Small Business Revolution. And if you haven't seen it, it's a really great show about really holding up small businesses throughout the country. So they pick different places throughout. For 6 years, they've picked six different locations, and this year they've actually picked Minneapolis and St. Paul. So some of you already know about this, but I was hearing about it, and it's great. They're doing three communities in Minneapolis, 3 in St. Paul. They've picked our Midway, Rondo, and East Side neighborhoods, and they're picking a business in each one. And I know that Ramsey County, we have been working with them on some of this, but it's going to come out in the fall, so we should all be watching for that work. And just to thank Deluxe and Amanda Brinkman for really doing that work. The motto of her department at Deluxe is "Do well by doing good." So by doing good in the community, that helps their company, and I think it's just a great motto. So kudos to Deluxe and to Amanda and to the work that they're doing. And then, Madam Chair, just to say that we had an AMC board meeting. A number of us were there, Commissioner Carter, McDonough, and I, and we're going to be doing our district meetings in person. So, wow. So District 10 will be an in-person meeting, and then all of the district meetings around the state are going to be in person. So people are very excited about that, and we'll hope that they all go well. I'm sure they will. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll quickly just report, last week we had the Riverview Community Advisory Committee. It's a very large committee, about 23 folks from the community. Of course, it runs the corridor from St. Paul to Bloomington. And when we first tried to recruit for this committee, we came up short basically in Bloomington, but also in St. Paul in terms of getting the type of diversity. And I'm not just talking about in terms of race, but I'm talking about diversity across the board. And I just want to give the staff great credit. I extended the recruiting for 2 months. We have a fantastic committee that's diverse in any way you want to slice it. And I think the board would be very proud of the kind of input we're going to get on this corridor. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to the staff. They did a fantastic job of really beating the bushes, so to speak, to recruit folks. And that's Kevin and Jennifer and Frank and Mike. They all did a fantastic job. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you so very, very much, all commissioners, for your updates. I would just like to share a couple of things. First of all, I had the opportunity of being a guest at the African Mental Health Virtual Summit this past week, and also to receive recognition, I believe, on behalf of all of the incredible work that is happening here in Ramsey County. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your policy leadership on the Board of Commissioners, to all of our leaders, and to every person on the ground, whether it be on the telephone, responding to questions, just simply supporting the work that is so important in any number of ways, or in direct support in areas of mental health service in Ramsey County. Thank you so much for all of your work, for recognizing the importance of cultural appropriateness and specificity, and say thank you to you on behalf of the African Mental Health Virtual Summit this past week. I would also like to share that next week, which is June 1st, in recognition of the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre, the National Association of Counties is supporting county commissioners from throughout the nation to attend that event in Tulsa, and I will be one of the representatives there, looking at not only recognizing the harm that has been done across the county with the disruption, massacres, fires, burnings, hangings, any number of past atrocities that have occurred across African American communities and also for other cultural communities, but also to recognize what can be done and the role of counties for economic empowerment. And so I look so forward to attending that, to representing all of us next week, and want to thank Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire for taking on the leadership for the June 1st board meeting, since I will be away in Tulsa. I also wanted to say thank you. We're excited and to recognize that we have now a new board clerk, Mi Chang, who will be coming on board and supporting us as board clerk toward the end of June. And so thank you so very much to Mi Chang. We feel very, very privileged that we will have the opportunity to work more closely with you. I did mention that we have a workshop coming up. I believe that we still have a little bit of time to take a break between 10 minutes. Is that all right, Commissioner McGuire?
I think that's great.
Thank you.
10:40, Madam Chair. That's 9 minutes.
Thank you.
We'll come back in at 10:40.
All right. And so we will reconvene at 10:40 for our workshop on a separate link. Thank you so much for.
Is that enough time for the boardroom? We should ask them if they want to make it 10:45. I don't know if the board.
We'll be good in 10. We'll be good in 10 minutes. We'll be good.
You'll be good. Okay.
Thank you. So we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, that's all you can do.